Steve Earle in our virtual Dell Music Lounge. This record's the story of 29 men who died in an explosion in a coal mine in West Virginia. And reportedly, allegedly, this is your attempt to find common ground with some people who may not traditionally think the way you do.
Yeah, or at least vote the way that I do. I don't think we think as differently as people think. I mean, it's as people believe. There are a lot of people that think completely differently than I do, but for the most part, it's more about what we feel. And you know, we always talk about people voting their pocketbooks, but I'm not sure that's true. I think what we vote is our hearts and our livelihoods. And you know, most people are just trying to take care of their families. And I think we've reached a point where almost no one understands anybody that does that differently than they do, that lives in another part of the country, makes their living a different way. You know, my politics haven't changed at all. I'm somewhat to the left of Mao Zedong by most people's standards in this country, and I'm unapologetic about that. But I also understand that this is a right of center country, and it always has been. And you know, it's benefited from socialism a lot of times in its history, whether it wants to admit it or not. And I just, that part of the history I know really well, but I've never fooled myself about what it is. And it's also undemocratic to expect people in Missouri or Michigan who don't have jobs anymore, or in West Virginia, which a lot of people don't even realize that was the most unionized place in America, later than any place else in the country. And it's not a hard red state. It was pretty purple for a long time. They still have a Democratic senator. He's a centrist Democratic senator, but they still have one. And, you know, that's the deal. You just can't, it's not very democratic to assume that everybody, that everybody's life is just like yours, and try to cram political theory down people's throats, because they don't care. They care about how it affects their lives. Coal, I think it's bad for the environment, but it's the only way anybody has of making a living in West Virginia. Anybody they see that has anything got it from the coal industry, so that's why they feel the way that they do. And if you can't understand that, look, West Virginia became the canary in the coal mine for me. I was looking for a way to make this record, and then Jessica Blank and Eric Jensen called me about coal country, and it fell in my lap. And the idea could have been, I could have picked out another place in the country, but musically, West Virginia was perfect because the music that I play lends itself to telling this story. Plus, Jessica and Eric had to go down there and interview everybody, because that's what the show is based on. There's interviews with the survivors of Upper Big Branch, this mine that exploded, which means a couple of guys that were there and the families of the people that didn't make it, the 29 guys that didn't make it. And plus, I talk like this, so I came in handy on the trips to West Virginia for the interviews.
A couple of weeks ago, when you saw the George Floyd video, did you see it as a generational opportunity potentially to transform democracy?
Initially, you know how I saw it? As someone that was choked unconscious by a police officer in Dallas, Texas in 1987 after a show at the Dallas Alley. And what I said was, I can't breathe, because that's what you say. So that's what I initially saw. I've had that experience. The experience I haven't had is, I've been sober for 25 years now and some change. So I don't look around me looking for cops anymore. I'm not scared of cops. But I don't think that's the experience of most African Americans in this country. So part of this I know more about than a lot of folks do, just by accident. And by the way, that incident in Dallas, I very nearly went to prison for it. It's the only felony I've ever been charged with was assaulting a police officer that night. And it's the only thing I've ever been charged with that I was absolutely innocent. And I didn't do anything. The Dallas Police Department just didn't pay out on excessive force claims in those days. And they just decided they would, get me they'd rather send me to the penitentiary than lose a civil rights suit. So that's what they did. They lawyered up, and we went to war. It cost me a lot of money, $100,087, and to defend it. Finally, a guy in the DA's office had a little mercy on me and decided that he took the case over later and just offered a plea bargaining offer. And I figured out they were going to send me to jail. That there was going to be no justice any other way. And so I pled to a misdemeanor, which was which was disorderly conduct, and it ended after the whole ordeal ended after a year. But it was scary there. The joke was that David Crosby had been released, and they needed a rhythm guitar player in the band in Huntsville. That was what was going around the courthouse up there in Dallas.
I mean, you know what it is to march, what social justice looks like. When you see what's happening right now, are you hopeful, or is November going to be the only real indicator of success in this situation?
I think November is almost a separate issue. I think that's another malignancy that needs to be removed. This has been going on even before we, elected an orangutan president of the United States. It shows that anybody can be president. We've absolutely proven that now. But this has been going on for a long time, and every other time that it's come up, it's where Bernie Sanders, I think the one mistake he made, and I supported him absolutely in the election cycle before this one, and even joined the Democratic Party so I could vote for him in the primary, which I'd never done before. I always end up voting for the Democratic candidate, by the way. Don't waste your vote, folks. Do not waste your vote. Be realistic about what our political system is, and because that's a lot of what got us in the trouble that we're in. People that didn't vote because they didn't want to get their hands dirty, they didn't like the candidate, and but make sure you vote for somebody, and then at least we know what we got. But I supported him, but he did. I know where he lost the Democratic nomination. It was at the moment where he decided somebody asked him about Black Lives Matters in particular, those issues concerning excessive force by police departments. And he said, it's not really about race. It's about class. And he was dead at that point with black voters, because it is about class, but only if you're white. And then it's about, for anybody else of any other shade, it's about race. And it always has been. I don't quote Condoleezza Rice very often, but she said once that, I believe, and I'm probably paraphrasing to some extent, that we suffer from a birth defect in this country. The country itself suffers from a birth defect, which is slavery, and we're still dealing with it. And it's slavery, stupid. That's the deal. That's what we're dealing with. And does it feel different? Yes, but I'm an optimistic guy. And I also am wary of anybody coasting, because I think that happened to a certain extent last time. I think, the video with the pea grabbing and all that stuff, everybody went, oh, he's toast. I don't have to get my hands dirty voting against him. I think that was a big one. And I thought he was toast. I did vote, but I thought he was toast. So I think they're kind of separate things. How can we go on calling ourselves the leaders of the free world when people of color have to be terrified just going to the grocery store?
Just this morning, you released a protest song. Times like these, this is what Steve Earle does in these times, is release a protest song. Some element of it is preaching to the choir. On the other hand,
this one's totally preaching to the choir. The record, the album, Ghost of West Virginia is for the congregation. This is for the choir. But it's also, I think, is something we can come together on. I wrote this song at the beginning of this nightmare, the Trump presidency, for Joan Baez to sing. And she was making a record with Joe Henry. They recorded it, but they left it off the record. So we recorded a version with the Dukes when we were making Ghosts of West Virginia. It will be my Record Store Day single. It's in the can, the electric version. That'll come out on the 7-inch. Now I think it's coming in August, because Record Store Day got scuttled like everything else. And but I just decided I needed this song out now, and I'd listened to the demo that I sent Joan, and I thought maybe for people to hear this, when I made this decision was the day after the violence sort of calmed down a little bit, and I was impressed that people out there in the streets realized that that violence would hurt them worse than anything else, and this kind of protest only works if it stays nonviolent. And they started policing it themselves pretty well, and things kind of chilled out quite a bit. So I was impressed, and it was just what I could do, and this is my job. So this is I went into Ray Kennedy's studio, and here I'm in Tennessee and have been since March 19th. I miss New York really bad. When New York comes back, I'm gonna go back.